Button has been hit. Okay, go.
On the count of three, everybody turn around and say, "Good morning, Alabama." Turn around to the camera. Turn around and say, "Good morning, Alabama." 1, 2, 3. Good morning, Alabama. All right, everyone can take your seats. Good morning, Birmingham, Alabama. Oh, I can't see you guys over here. My name is Josie DiChiata. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Thank you for tolerating the little exercise. I wanted to welcome you to the 20th stop of the AFA's Educating America Tour. We are going all over the country. We started this tour last year. We were in Birmingham last year. We loved it so much we wanted to come back again. We've got a great day planned for you. But first, a test. So in your packets, you should have your programs. I hear everyone's like, I thought I was just going to come to listen. In the back of your programs, you have a puzzle. Please take your puzzle out. If you are missing a program, raise your hand, please. Everyone have their program? Everyone have the puzzle? Al, we need extra programs.
Oh.
Okay, does everyone have their program? Turn it over to the... Look at your packet. Got it? Okay. All right, everyone has a puzzle? We're going to put 3 minutes up on the screen. Sorry, I'm not mine. We're going to put 3 minutes up on the screen, and we need you to complete the puzzle. So, ready? Stop laughing. Ready, set, begin. Anyone done yet? Steph, don't lie. Two minutes. Seconds. Should be wrapping up right about now. Half done? Tisk, tisk. Okay. Show you a quick video to explain why you couldn't do it. I know this whole day is going to be about
My name is Will Shorts. I'm crossword editor for the New York Times. This puzzle has a special story behind it. Only one person knows all the answers, but she doesn't remember them anymore.
Alzheimer's is a devastating disease. We wanted to demonstrate its effects and show how the AFA can help. So we took a common hobby and transformed it into a way of experiencing the disease. First, we learned facts about patients' lives by interviewing their relatives.
My grandmother is Catherine. She had forgotten to feed the dog. She found a doll, named it. My dad's name is Richard. My name is Dad. Completely burned the fried chicken.
Then, we had Will Shorts create puzzles based on each patient's life and the answers they can no longer find. We worked with the biggest newspapers in the United States to have the puzzles covertly published, making enthusiasts struggle to find the simplest answers. In addition to the newspapers, a range of media drove people online, where they could learn more about how the AFA can provide support. We showed the effects of Alzheimer's through a crossword puzzle that not a single person can solve. We reached over 5 million newspaper readers, a total of 50 million adding other media. AFA saw a 159% increase in web traffic and another 62% in calls. And with unsolvable crossword puzzles, we helped many find the answers they needed.
Does everybody feel better now? So as I said, my name is Josie DiChiara. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. I'll be telling you more about us, who we are, what we do, throughout the course of the day. Most important thing is that we were founded 16 years ago by a caregiver. He wanted to make sure that no one had to go through the journey that he did with his mom at a time when there were no resources, there were no organizations and people that could help. 16 years later, we're always proud to say that we've surpassed any vision he had for the AFA. To date, we have trained over 13,000 people that are now dementia trained. We've done memory screenings for over 4 million people. On the topic of memory screenings, as most of you know, we'll be doing free confidential memory screenings today. If you want to sign up to have a screening done, please see Alex, who's in the back of the room, or Jeannie, who's upstairs at our registration table. Without further ado, since we're running a tad on the late side, I wanted to start with our first speaker. Dr. Christine Locken is the co-founder and CEO of the Brain Health Institute. She's also the Director of Rehabilitation Neuropsychology Service for the VA Medical Center in Birmingham and a clinical assistant professor at the University of Alabama here in Birmingham. She has more than 20 years of clinical and teaching experience. Dr. Locken is a functional neuropsychologist with a passion for helping people restore brain health. Please welcome Christine Locken.
Good morning. So thank you, Josie, and it's just such an honor to be here to speak with all of you at this incredible event in a series of incredible free educational events for the public. I think I was just very pleased that Birmingham is a part of this and made the cut in terms of the cities that we go to. I think there's such a need here. I was also looking at the Alzheimer's Foundation of America online yesterday, just in preparation for the talk and kind of getting their background about their mission and accomplishments, and I'm just absolutely astounded by all that has been accomplished since 2002. And I think that it came about at a time when there is such a critical need for more information, and that we're really moving towards Alzheimer's disease being not such a private, lonely, isolating disease, but really opening it up where people can ask questions, where they can reach out to others, where there's a sense of community and just a sense of empowerment in terms of the illness and in terms of what we can do about it. And that's really my hope for today, is that I can share more of that message. So I'm super excited to talk to you about preventing and treating cognitive decline and what you need to know about healthy aging. That's like my most dear topic. It's what I do. It's kind of the passion that I live. And then the objectives that I want to do today is to dispel some of the myths of cognitive decline. And a bit of a spoiler alert, and I think this is, I've been doing this for so long, it seems like old news to me, but for some of you, this might be new news. And it's not always what we're told by the media, and it's not always what we're told by our physicians. And so I really want to use the current literature, some of it's like seriously hot off the press, and to dispel some of the myths of cognitive decline. And the spoiler alert is that it's not normal. It's not necessarily normal that as we get older, our thinking abilities change. They are in a negative way. They can change, but it doesn't have to be inevitable. And it's not just bad luck if you have Alzheimer's disease or if you have cognitive decline, and it's not predetermined. It's not just because of our genetic makeup. And we'll talk a lot more about that and some of the research that's out there now to dispel some of those myths. And then I want to discuss what is the contributing factors for cognitive decline, and those are, there is, genetic component. There are many biomarkers, so our laboratory levels, like our personal biomarkers, such as blood pressure and D3 levels and B12 and a lot of other fancy biomarkers that we look at. Lifestyle variables do contribute, and the environment definitely contributes in terms of toxin exposure, also in terms of our life experience, in terms of trauma or happiness or connection with others. Then I want to introduce the brain health model of intervention, and that's what we use at the Brain Health Institute here in Birmingham, Alabama, and so I'll walk you all through that. And really my primary goal is to provide effective strategies for preventing and treating cognitive decline. You can go ahead and advance it. And so the goal is that you'll walk away with some practical tips, tools, and information to transform fear and resignation into empowerment and hope. And that's my biggest goal, is that we can improve thinking, memory, mood, and well-being, and that we have some simple strategies to do that, and some complex strategies. So before I start with the meat of the presentation, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey and how the Brain Health Institute came about. I'm an academician. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from the South. I grew up in North Dakota, and I progressively moved my way warmer. I think I'll stay here though. It's good weather here. And basically, I am a neuropsychologist, and I started at the University of Alabama as a professor, and then moved as a clinical researcher to UAB and was there for several years, and then am now in my current position as Director of Rehab Neuropsychology at the VA. So I'm very firmly in conventional medicine, very firmly guided by literature, but I've also always had a real personal interest in health behavior and a passion for just understanding what else we can do to promote health. And so the Brain Health Institute actually came about as kind of the nexus of all this knowledge, and it really grew as a passion project, and we opened it up in October of 2016. And I joined up with a functional medicine doctor, an integrative physician in town, Dr. James McMinn. He has the McMinn Clinic, and the two of us opened a separate business together called the Brain Health Institute. And what we do is a team approach where we combine systems biology. So basically systems biology is looking at all those individual laboratory markers and all those things that contribute to memory decline, and then also lifestyle behaviors in terms of more of a holistic and lifestyle interventions for memory problems and other psychological and neurological problems. We offer a host of services there. We do consultations, we do brain health checkups. So today, many of you might be doing the memory screenings. A brain health checkup would just take that a little bit farther, where it's not just a global measure, but we would look at all the individual functions and seeing if you're having any difficulties and what those difficulties might be and what they might be caused from. And we also do prevention and optimization evaluations. Many of our patients have family members with Alzheimer's disease or other progressive dementias, and they want to do anything they can, obviously, to prevent that in happening with themselves. We also have some clients that are CEOs or lawyers or high-functioning individuals in their careers, and as they're getting into their 50s, early 60s, they're noticing a little bit of slippage, and so they want to optimize and continue to function in their role as long as possible. So we do some prevention and optimization. And then we also are unique in that we provide programmatic interventions, and one of them being the Bredesen Protocol. I just want to see a show of hands. Is anyone familiar with the Bredesen Protocol or the book, The End of Alzheimer's Disease? Oh my goodness, it's brand new, so great. I'm gonna really want to talk a lot more about this. So Dr. Dale Bredesen is a UCLA professor who has worked for over 30 years doing what's called bench research, like laboratory research on Alzheimer's disease and the contributors to Alzheimer's disease. And what he found is that if you look at Alzheimer's disease from a root cause analysis, like there's many different contributors to the development of Alzheimer's disease. He likens it to a roof, a leaky roof, and now they've found about 44 different contributions to the development of Alzheimer's disease. And so as you go and you plug all those different holes, you start to find stabilization in terms of prevention, or in those who already have some cognitive impairment, stabilization, and sometimes there's reversal or at least some restoration of cognitive functioning. And you really don't have to plug all 44 holes, you just have to kind of get at the big ones. So if there's like something dumping in, you really want to plug that hole, and then a bunch of little ones, and at about 12 you get some stabilization with it. And he had a landmark study in 2014 where he showed restoration of cognitive functioning in 9 out of 10 individuals that had bona fide diagnosed Alzheimer's disease. So it's pretty cutting edge, it's very exciting, and again, kind of flies in the face of some of the myths that we have in terms of that there's nothing that you can do about Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot that you can do. Can you go back a slide? One more thing with that. So we do the Bredesen program, and then also we have a behaviorist that's working with us, and so one of the biggest things that we look at in terms of behavioral change and working with someone really closely and help you making behavioral changes. We also do cognitive rehabilitation, and I was talking to my friend the other day, and I said we do cog rehab, and she thought I said hug rehab. And I'm not going to underestimate the power of human touch, but again, like everything we do has a scientific basis at the Brain Health Institute. So it was interesting that she said that back to me, that you do hug rehab. So we don't do hug rehab, but we do cognitive rehabilitation. And then also we have a yoga instructor who's trained in Love Your Brain yoga, and she often works with our Alzheimer's patients and their families to do really some simple stretching strategies or even some meditation strategies, things like that. And then we also have topic-specific class series and workshops. There's one that we have coming up starting May 7th called mindfulness eating. And so that's one of the biggest things is we find that like emotional eating or just chaotic eating or other things kind of get in the way. And so we teach simple strategies through that course series. It's going to be on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5 to 6. We have, so right today I'm going to talk more about like the memory clinic and what we do there in the Bredesen protocol and the prevention optimization clinic, because we kind of apply those to both of those clinics. And we're building out the mindful eating clinic, also a holistic psychology clinic. What I do at the VA is more related to traumatic brain injury, and so we're going to start to treat traumatic brain injury and concussion from more of a holistic perspective. And then autoimmune treatments for like multiple sclerosis and lupus, and they all kind of have a similar foundation with them, and so we're going to build out these other clinics as well. So we're going to start off by, just one more thing. For the Brain Health Institute, I think one of the first questions I always get is, does insurance cover this? We do use a lab that bills insurance for the lab work. However, our practice is a cash-based practice. And I really grappled a lot before opening the Brain Health Institute as to whether or not we would accept insurance and what we could do with that. I did land on the cash-based practice, and I'm going to liken it to car insurance because I think it's very similar. So everyone has car insurance, and that's, something that's in place if you, if you get in a wreck, God forbid you get in a wreck, or if, hail comes down and damages your car insurance is you'll have a bit of a deductible, but it will help you pay for a car that might be totaled or damaged or, some type of problem with it. However, with your car, you usually take it in for maintenance, and insurance doesn't cover that. You usually take it in to get your tires rotated or new tires, and insurance typically doesn't cover that. And so what we offer at the Brain Health Institute is very similar to that. So if you didn't take your car in for maintenance, or only did the things that insurance covers, your wheels would be falling off. And so we don't want that to happen with people's brains. We want you to come in for maintenance. We want some adjunct things that your insurance just is not going to cover, and you can do prevention and maintenance in terms of the Brain Health Institute. And so I think that kind of, it takes a bit of, well, does my insurance cover it? No, but if you only did conventional medicine and what your insurance covers, there's probably a lot of things that you would be missing out on. The good news is that a lot of what we do at the Brain Health Institute are things that, as I educate you guys today, that you can really do on your own at home. And then for those that need more guidance or want more specific information about their personalized protocol, their lab markers, then we can, guide them with that. But really my mission is to get the information out there. So what you need to know about healthy aging, you can go ahead and advance. So what is healthy aging? The World Health Organization defines healthy aging as the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that enables well-being in older age. I think we can all agree with that. Functional ability is about having the capabilities that enable all people to be and do what they have reason to value. And I don't know what they're laughing at, but I so want to hang out with the people in this picture because they're just really having a good time. And I think when we think about, if we close our eyes and think about healthy aging, or all of us are aging, how we see ourselves in terms of what healthy aging means, you're probably gonna think about someone who, eats well, who sleeps well, who engages with others, who has joy, meaning, happiness in their life, someone who is able to move, someone who engages in physical exercise and is able to go for a walk, someone who has the cognitive ability to engage in these things. And I think that's kind of the crux of it, is that when we think about healthy aging, it's not waking up to a lot of prescription medications, it's not having pain, it's not having confusion, and at the crux of it all, we want a healthy brain so that we have functional abilities and so that we have independence. And one thing that I found at the Brain Health Institute is that as we start to focus on brain health, everything else follows. So we had a few patients in the early stages of the Brain Health Institute that came in who were really in a severe dementia. So they were pretty cognitively declined. But we did the program anyway, and they had some really involved caregivers. And 3 or 4 or 5 months later, they would come back in, and even though their memory scores weren't better, their memory wasn't any better, they looked better. There was a pep in their step. Their color, changed to more of a healthy color. They had more energy. They were more engaged and involved with their family. And so I think it kind of moves more towards healthy aging. We had one woman who was in the severe stages of Alzheimer's, and when she came in, she was really like more of an ashen gray color. She was carrying a lot of weight and had severe memory impairments. And 4 months later, she had decided to not use dye on her hair because of the contributions of the toxins from hair dye, and she went to her natural color, and she kind of had like this funky haircut. She had a pep in her step. She had lost 20 pounds. She had more energy. Her family was thrilled, even though her cognitive abilities were stable. She just felt better. So I think that's what the thing that I've really taken away from my few years of work with the Brain Health Institute is that when you start to focus on brain health, then everything else gets better as well. The body gets better as well. And a lot of questions in terms of what is cognitive decline and what is expected and what is dementia and what is Alzheimer's disease. So I just wanted to give an overview of that. So we have at the one end of the continuum is normal cognition, and what's normal for one person is not necessarily normal for someone else. So how you function without any impairment. And then it moves to what we would call age-related cognitive decline, which doesn't necessarily have to happen. I think if you optimize different biomarkers, things like that the age-related cognitive decline doesn't necessarily have to come. And then we'll see more subjective cognitive impairment, where people know that they're not as sharp as they used to be, but it's not really showing up in terms of when they go to their neurologist or even on a cognitive screener, but yet you kind of know that you're not where you were before. And then moves into mild cognitive impairment, where there's one standard deviation below where that person should be in terms of their cognitive ability, and then more into major neurocognitive disorder, which is underneath that is the umbrella term of dementia. And Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of a dementia. There's also frontal-temporal dementia, vascular dementia, sometimes Parkinson's disease or other things can fall under that. And so that's kind of the continuum of where we're working from. And a lot of patients ask, well, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? Well, Alzheimer's disease is a specific type of a dementia. And what's the difference between mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease? Usually mild cognitive impairment is a prodrome, kind of a precursor to Alzheimer's disease, but what we're finding is that that is not necessarily the case. Sometimes you can really halt the progression at subjective cognitive impairment or mild cognitive impairment or even early Alzheimer's disease, and even restore some of those cognitive functions. So the contributors to the development of cognitive decline, I think we've been told the story that our genetics is going to determine whether or not we get Alzheimer's disease. And that's partly true, but really when it comes down to it, genetics only determines about 20% of the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And epigenetics is 80% of the risk. And epigenetics are the biological mechanisms that can switch the genes on or off. So it is at a biological level, but whether or not those genes get switched on or off has to do with what our experiences are. So again, trauma or social connection or parenting can contribute to those types of things because there's actual biomarker changes from that, and our lifestyles. So what we're exposed to in terms of the food that we eat, the toxins that we're exposed to in the environment. And so all of these things determine whether or not those genes, so if you have a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's disease, the epigenetics or lifestyle or the influence of your life variables are going to determine whether or not those are turned on. Does that make sense? Okay, I think it's a huge part of the picture. And so what is epigenetics? It's really a very, very new area of study. The interesting part is that research shows that it takes an average of 17 years for the current literature to be put into clinical practice. And so epigenetics is very, very new, and a lot of the things that I'm talking about, these just came out within the last, maybe 5 years. Some of them is some of it was this weekend as I ran my data analysis, unpublished data. But epigenetics is a very new field, and it's the study, like I said, of the biological mechanisms that will switch genes on and off. And the premise basically is that certain circumstances in your life can cause the genetics to be silenced or expressed over time, and that genes can be dormant or they can be active depending on how our life plays out. And as I said, the lifestyle and environmental factors are big determinants with that. And this is why that if someone has a genetic predisposition for something, why it might play out in someone and not in someone else. It's determined by our epigenetics. Okay, you can go ahead. And so I think this is really great news that, that we should feel very empowered from this, that our behaviors matter, and that there is something we can do, and that we have way more control over our destiny than we thought. However, that means, well, is this all personal responsibility? And I don't think that's the takeaway message. We are in a great experiment right now in terms of how the food that is processed and prepared for us, it has really low nutrient value. We're in lifestyles that are very sedentary. We now are fully clothed and indoors most of the time, not getting, D3 levels. And so it's really hard to take that it's all personal responsibility in what you're doing when your environment, the capitalist society, and everything is not really set up for success. So I think we can't really look to the individual person, but I think we need to kind of take a step back and try to set up our society and set up things for success rather than, to the detriment of human health. And so with this knowledge, we also get a lot of conflicting information. And I know that there's, especially with diet, like one day this is good for you, the next day it's bad, don't eat this, eat that. It's just really confusing information. And it kind of leads to people not knowing the actions to take. And so what I like to do is to distill down the information and really read through the information and put it into practical terms and easy things that you can do that are actually scientifically supported. So the current state of affairs is that patients often do not seek medical care because they have been told that there's really nothing that can be done. And there's a fear of loss of independence. There's a fear that, people will find out that they're not thinking very well. There's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of shame associated with it, which, I really hope that we can work to dispel that and to work against that. And also, it's, you can lose long-term care insurance with different diagnoses. And so I think people really avoid early detection and just think that there's really nothing that can be done. And then they might go to their primary care providers who often don't refer because they don't think that there's really much that they can do in terms of effective therapy. And so most patients are just put on Aricept or other neuroprotective agent and hope for the best. And even if someone does go to a specialist, rarely there's any prevention or early intervention or any education that's provided for the patient therapeutically. And so what we do at the Brain Health Institute is that we take a different approach. And basically, we try to get at the root cause of what's causing each specific individual's memory issues. And we add on personal adjuncts to, sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing this. I wonder if I can move over here. Can you guys still hear me if I'm over here? So personal adjuncts to the standard conventional therapies. So we work in conjunction with your physicians, with the neurologists, with UAB Memory Disorders Center. So it's not, it's just, and again, like I'm, definitely within conventional medicine, but we add on some other adjuncts to that as well. Perfect. Thanks. All right, I'm going to take it on the road. And so we use a systems biology approach. Again, we look at all these different lab levels for each individual and learn how we can optimize those lab levels for that specific individual. And then we work on regulation of dietary selection and eating behaviors. We work on regulation of mood and stress and sleep, and then we incorporate targeted exercise, so specific exercise, again, meeting that person where they are. Maybe it's just isometrics, maybe it's more specific cardiovascular, and then we also do cognitive rehab techniques. And one of the bigger things, in addition to The End of Alzheimer's by Dr. Dale Bredesen, Joe Pizzorno wrote The Toxin Solution and makes a very good argument that we live in such a toxic world and that people are exposed to many different toxins, and this might be an underlying contributor to disease in general, but also to cognitive decline. And so there are several points of intervention. One is to prevent before any cognitive symptoms are detected, and targeting those with the APOE4 gene marker, so those who have a genetic risk for it. And then also we can work with those who are starting to have subjective cognitive impairment or mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's disease and work with them to help restore those functions before they decline into more of a dementia. And then with our patients who have dementia, you can help them when the disease process has taken hold, and then just try to stabilize the cognitive functioning and improve quality of life for both the patient with Alzheimer's disease or other dementia and their caregiver. So we work on behaviors and mood and things like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the specific genetic biomarker and lifestyle and environmental factors that do contribute to the cognitive impairment. So now we're kind of getting at what are those 44 holes in the roof and how do we start to plug them? So the systems biology approach, like I said, takes a look at disease by examining complex interactions with biological systems and uses a root cause, so the underlying cause, and a holistic approach to treatment. We look at genetics and we take that into consideration, but we also look at biomarkers. And there are specific biomarkers that contribute to all disease. Some of those are inflammatory. So if you have a lab appointment coming up or a doctor's appointment coming up, ask them to run a C4A, a CRP, or homocysteine levels. Those are indirect measures of inflammation, and we know that inflammation contributes to basically all disease, but specifically these can contribute to neuroinflammation, which is a contributor to cognitive decline. And then we also look at metabolic factors, and this is the one that nobody likes to hear, but our fasting glucose, our HbA1c, which is a measure of your blood glucose over time, and insulin, so basically how much sugar you're having if you have at risk for diabetes, definitely contributes to cognitive decline. And then neurotrophic factors, which are our hormones, and we all know as we age, our testosterone goes down, our estrogen goes down, our DHEA, which is a master hormone, and pregnenolone, which are master hormones, they all go down, and that decrease in hormones contributes to cognitive decline as well. Systems biology also looks at lifestyle factors such as diet, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but food is so much more than just fuel and so much more than entertainment. It is, at the basic level, it is information for your cells, for your mitochondria. And so what we eat is going to really going to contribute to whether or not our cells thrive or whether they decline over time. And you can eat a really unhealthy diet for a period of time, but it starts to catch up with you because you'll have certain nutrient deficiencies. And so we look at that and try to optimize diet. Other lifestyle factors are exercise, sleep is very important, and also emotions. And then we also look at toxin loads and toxicants. So toxins are more biological, such as poisons or things like that. And then the toxicants are the man-made, such as things that are ingredients that we've made to keep food fresh, things that are injected into our food, or glyphosate that is used in terms, like Roundup, that's used in terms of pesticides. Also, other toxicants that are in health and beauty aids that, help with how we look. It's really kind of interesting that that can actually contribute to cognitive decline. And so the systems biology approach really considers all these factors and that they work synergistically, that they work together rather than in isolation. So I think one of the problems with conventional medicine as we interpret the literature is that, well, taking, D3 doesn't really improve cognitive function. Well, maybe not on its own, but if it's in a programmatic way, a synergistic way, along with many other things, it can show some movement in terms of improving cognitive function. So one of the biggest questions, I think, is what about genetics and Alzheimer's disease? And there is FAD, which is early onset familial Alzheimer's disease. It actually accounts for very few of Alzheimer's diagnoses, less than 10%. And the age of onset in these individuals is usually the late 30s, or into like the early 60s. So it's very early onset, and there's specific genetic mutations on either on chromosome 21 or chromosome 14 or chromosome 1 that results in this formation of abnormal proteins. This is very rare. In those cases, the genetics is a lot higher in terms of your whether or not you would develop it if you had those genetic mutations. And maybe some of you saw the 60 Minutes special on the study that they're doing in South America, and that's kind of that early onset Alzheimer's disease that they're talking about. But what's more common is that APOE gene can influence the risk of late onset type of dementia. So that's more in like the developing maybe in the late 50s, 60s, but typically more like your 70s and 80s for late onset. And there's three types of the APO gene, or there's different alleles. And so everyone gets one copy of an allele from their mom and one copy from their dad. And so there are different combinations that you can have because there's E2, E3, or E4. So you could get E2 and E2 from both parents, and that would actually make you at the lowest risk and actually protect you from Alzheimer's disease. Or you could get E2 from one parent, E3 from another parent, or E2 and E4 is going to be the one that most increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So if someone has E2, even one copy of that can reduce the risk of Alzheimer's by up to 40%. So if someone has one copy of the E4, it can increase risk by 2 to 3 times. And if you have 2 copies of the APOE4 gene, that increases risk by 12 times. So we do genetic testing at the Brain Health Institute, mostly to identify risk ratios. But as we see, our genes do not necessarily determine our destiny. And so I think we can see like what your risk ratio is and how likely you might be to develop that, especially if you're E4. But we've seen in our cases at the Brain Health Institute that that's not necessarily the case. For example, we had one gentleman who's 73-year-old, a Caucasian male with 15 years of education. He was a retired builder. And he actually had, we did genetic testing, and he had E2, which should make him actually protected against Alzheimer's disease. And he was negative for the familial Alzheimer's type abnormalities as well, and no family history of Alzheimer's disease. However, he presented and was in a 10-year history of progressive cognitive decline. His current score on a screener was 16 out of 58, and so he was in the very low range of the cognitive screener. And he did get an FDG PET where they identified amyloid plaques in the brain, so he had bona fide Alzheimer's disease even though he was E2. And so there's something else going on with these individuals, and more than likely he had a really high toxin load. A GGT level correlates with toxin load. He was a builder. He was exposed to many different types of chemicals and things in his trade. He also had high levels of mercury, high levels of lead in his blood, and he also lived in a home that was made with Chinese drywall for 20 years. And so I think, we have to look at the bigger picture that even if you're E2, you're not at low risk for it. It depends on your epigenetics, your environment, and so there might be other things contributing. But a better story is a woman who's 75-year-old Caucasian female with 16 years of education. She's a retired salesperson. This person is very near and dear to my heart. She's actually a family member on my husband's side, and she inadvertently found out that she had a copy of the E4, the APOE, the Alzheimer's gene that puts her at higher increased risk of Alzheimer's disease, and was very frightened about that. Her mom had died of a dementia, and she had some family history of that. And so she wanted to look at, how her brain health was doing. She actually scored a 57 out of 58 on the cognitive status exam, which is very good. And all of her cognitive testing across the board, memory, executive functions, all those types of things. We took a tour of her brain, and everything was in the high average range. And so even though she had that risk, she was still, cognitively doing great, at 70, 75. And so she started the protocol anyway. She just wanted to do everything she could to prevent, especially knowing that her genetics would put her at higher risk. And after 4 months on the prevention protocol, she had lower anxiety. She had improved sleep. When she first came in, she was waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. And just couldn't fall back to sleep, and so really struggled with her sleep. And that just wasn't happening anymore after a couple of months. She did work with our yoga instructor and did some meditation and did some relaxation before bed, and that seemed to really help. We also had her on a program of some supplements, looking at her lab levels, and some of those adaptogens probably helped with her sleep as well. And she reported that there had been a few times that she had kind of lost her train of thought during conversations prior to the intervention, and she said that hadn't happened the whole time that she was on the program. So genetics does not determine your destiny. You can be at very low risk in terms of genetics, and still Alzheimer's could happen, or you could be at high risk and really, it won't play out. And so I think, again, that's more of empowerment. It's not, your genes don't determine your destiny. There's a lot you can do. Another inflammatory biomarker is homocysteine, and there's been a few studies in the literature showing that homocysteine, which is an amino acid, it actually correlates with cognitive status. And everyone needs to give a shout out to Gabby over there. She's my research assistant that helped me put together our database at the Brain Health Institute. And what we found in terms of our patients, we had homocysteine levels on them, and it correlated very highly with global cognitive status, nonverbal memory scores, verbal learning and memory, processing speed, mental flexibility, semantic and phonemic verbal fluency. And so, knowing your homocysteine level and doing things that you can to reduce your homocysteine is going to really improve cognitive impairment and reduce your risk. And some of the things that you can do are diet related, and just, eating a diet that is rich in B vitamins and low in inflammatory foods. Also, monitoring smoking and monitoring chemical exposure and monitoring alcohol use as well. And the last metabolic biomarker is the fasting insulin, and this is the one that really nobody likes to hear, but sugar contributes to memory problems. Sugar definitely contributes to Alzheimer's disease, and throughout the literature it's been shown that higher insulin levels are associated with faster decline on cognitive screener and verbal memory. There was another one that found that insulin resistance predicted cognitive decline at 11-year follow-up. And then we also found that fasting insulin levels at baseline were significantly correlated with executive function, which is more of like decision making and problem solving. So if you don't take anything else away from today's talk, try to look at the sugar that you're taking in on a daily basis. And I'm not the cupcake police at all. I'm not about dogma. I'm not about deprivation. But we are so bombarded with sugar and high fructose corn syrup that just kind of monitor the level that you're taking in, because it does make a difference in terms of developing cognitive issues. And then the neurotrophic factors, estradiol positively impacts some aspects of cognitive function. Testosterone may improve cognitive functions, and then there's associations between DHEA and pregnenolone. And again, like, looking at your levels and talking with your physician to see if it makes sense for you to monitor those levels or make those levels different. And so you can address biomarker inefficiencies through medical interventions or medications, but a lot of times it's not adding medications. Sometimes it's taking medications away if it makes sense, and working with your physicians to do that. For example, if anyone is on a proton pump inhibitor or a statin drug, it actually contributes negatively to those biomarkers, and so we'd like to kind of reduce those types of medications that have cognitive side effects. Maybe some supplementation, but my idea of supplementation is that supplements should be supplementary, and that you should be getting most of your nutrients from a varied and healthy diet. And so nobody wants to be taking handfuls and handfuls of supplements, and they may not be really helping that much. So you really want to get it more through diet. And then lifestyle interventions, that healthy eating, emotional regulation, and activity, and identifying your sources, your personal sources of toxin or toxicant load, and then working to remove those. And you could do some medical interventions to remove those types of things, but sometimes it's just adding the vegetables from the cabbage family are really detoxifying. So any cruciferous vegetable like broccoli or kale, cabbage, cilantro is actually a natural chelator for metals, especially mercury. So if you have a lot of amalgam fillings, if you don't mind the taste of cilantro, some people can't stand it, eat lots and lots of cilantro and parsley, and that's actually going to be a natural detoxifier. So I think there are simple things that you can do every day to kind of just make sure that your toxin load is reduced. And so I've come up with the brain health intervention that touches on all of these things. And at the Brain Health Institute, we do this in more of a programmatic and systematic way. So we start really with small shifts and meet people where they are. I've had people come in who are on an amazing diet already, and we don't have to do anything with that. We work on some other things. I've had other people come in where diet is really hard, where they don't know where to start. They might be addicted to food or have problems like that. And so it just really depends. And so we do personalized interventions with people, but also we have a class that will be starting in June where we kind of do a general overview so you can, kind of do your own intervention by yourself without actually being a patient at the Brain Health Institute. And so the H is for healthy eating, E is for emotional regulation, A is for activity levels, L, learning strategies, T is toxicant reduction, and H is to distill these all down into these easy daily habits that are something that you can do, something that you can do on a daily basis. And so the first one is healthy eating, and from the literature that is out there, has anyone heard about the ketogenic diet? I mean, it is everywhere. It is like hot topic. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation, and so if you do want to go more towards a ketogenic diet, please don't do like the Atkins diet from days of yore. You have to do an alkaline-based ketogenic diet, meaning that you have to have a lot of greens and vegetables and antioxidants along with a fat-based diet with the ketogenic protocol. But usually what we do is work with people to get them from the standard American diet, the SAD diet, to more of a keto diet. And we have a lot of different points in between that work for different individuals. Mostly, you begin by readying processed foods. So we try to work on eating more whole foods, things that don't come in a box or a bag, things that don't have a laundry list of ingredients. I did this with my kids when they were small. They would have to count up the ingredients, and if they couldn't count how many ingredients or couldn't pronounce the ingredients, then we weren't going to eat that. That worked for a while. Now, they engage. It's just a part of life, I think. And so kind of working to reduce those processed foods, it's hard to completely eliminate those. Reducing all sugars and even if you read the label, sugar can be masked in many different ways. So high fructose corn syrup, there's also, maltodextrin, like all kinds of things that can be sugar and contribute to the sugar. So just being a good label reader. And then also another myth is that artificial sweeteners are better than the regular cane sugar. And that's not true. In a few of the research studies that have been done, people who are consuming artificial sweeteners such as NutraSweet or saccharin are actually at higher risk for developing diabetes than those who just eat the regular sugar. So I think the bottom line is that we just can't hack the human body, and that go to natural sources of foods and whole foods. The other thing, in some of the resources like the Whole30 or the Institute of Functional Medicine Mito Diet, and these are all online resources, or you can buy the book for Whole30. Also, if you guys want to give me your email address out at the table, I can send you an ebook that lists more in depth about these different, all these different things, just more in depth, and can tell you a little bit more about it. Also, it's recommended that we engage in intermittent fasting, and again, that's kind of all over the internet, and there's some misinformation with that. But my idea of intermittent fasting and what the literature supports is that you go at least 12 hours between your last meal of the day and your first meal of the day. And during that time, the body can stop to think about digestion, and it actually can work to do the work of cleaning out all the kind of toxins and garbage that is built up during the day. And it gets you more towards that lower sugar level, that lower fasting glucose. And so if you can, not snack throughout the night or not eat a bedtime snack and just go that 12 hours, eat a good, solid dinner and then not go for 12 hours, it really frees up a lot of space. Some individuals who are really doing the Bredesen protocol, who are in a brain in crisis in terms of Alzheimer's disease or early cognitive impairment, often go for 16 hours of fasting, which is hard to do, but that actually shows more of a benefit for cognitive. In terms of emotional regulation, cortisol can actually damage the hippocampus, and so when we are in that fight or flight response, when we're highly stressed, our cortisol either is way up, or if over time it's been up, it can be way down and be dysregulated. And so we really want to work on mood and stress by just lowering the stress, lowering our response. And funny as it is, meditation has actually shown to be one of the biggest contributors to lowering stress and therefore improvement in cognitive function. So, and different people meditate in different ways. You don't have to be Buddha and cross-legged. Meditations can also be sitting in peaceful thought or reading the Bible or something like that. But just having that alone time, that time away to reflect, is really important for emotional regulation. And for activity, we cover a lot of different things, not only exercise and movement, but also restorative sleep. Again, that's a time when the body's taking out the garbage from the brain. We've just found out that there's a glymphatic system in addition to the lymphatic system. And the glymphatic system basically washes out things like the sticky amyloid plaque from Alzheimer's disease during sleep. And so if you can get, 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep, it's going to be so much better for you to function cognitively the next day, or just in terms of preventing cognitive impairment. I know many of you are caregivers, and maybe that's just not an option, but know that that's a good goal to shoot for. Also, sexuality, enjoying nature. Is there joy in your life? Is there meaning and purpose? And I think all those things are really protective factors for cognitive decline. We do a lot of focusing on learning strategies. So I'm a neuropsychologist, and so I like to look at if there are any inefficiencies and then really give some tools to challenge those inefficiencies. It's very true, like it's use it or lose it. And a lot of us, if we're not good at something, we don't like to do that task. But if we engage in it more, it will actually get better and slow the decline. And we can identify specific strengths so you can compensate for the weaknesses. Also, there's a Brain HQ. It can be a free program or a paid program where they have those brain games online, and that's okay, but actually the research shows that when you engage in a complex activity like learning knitting or learning a foreign language or re-engaging in a musical instrument, that actually has more of a protective effect against cognitive decline. And then the toxicant reduction, this is one thing that I'm going to dive deeper in. And what we found in our database at the Brain Health Institute, we took a measure called GGT, which is a liver enzyme, and it's kind of a crude measure of a person's toxin load. And that measure correlated with global cognitive decline and decreases in phonemic verbal fluency. And so I think that is part of the equation, that we cannot ignore our own toxin loads, maybe be knowledgeable about our current toxin exposures and those that we've been exposed to in the past, and have kind of more of daily detox rituals, just like you brush your teeth every day, you floss your teeth every day. You know, maybe you can do some simple things as daily detox rituals, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Or if there is like a lot of, you know, heavy metal exposure or something like that, thinking about more of a targeted detox program. Because it's a toxic world, just water, food, mold, and other mycotoxins, especially for individuals like on the coast, like if they've had flood damage or water damage in their home, there might be mold and mycotoxins or heavy metals. One of the other things that I discovered is that our health and beauty aid industry is just not regulated. There has not been a major federal law passed to ban ingredients in health and beauty aids since 1948, which is abysmal because there's been over 80,000 ingredients introduced. And so the health and beauty aid industry is basically policing itself, and there are still lipsticks that contain lead. I mean, think about that. If a woman has lipstick, or a man, you know, has lipstick on their lips, you're licking that throughout the day, you're ingesting it, and you ingest tons of that over time. And so basically you're, you know, ingesting lead, and also there's still mercury in certain mascaras, and it's close to your eye, and so you're gonna absorb that. And so be really careful about the health and beauty aids that you use. There's an app called EWG Healthy Living app that you can basically take into the store, and you can scan the code, and it will tell you from 1 to 10 like how toxic that is, and you really want to go for something that's lower than a 4. And so if you are using a certain type of shampoo and it rates a 9 or a 10, easily switch out that that product for a more safe one. Also oral hygiene can really contribute as well. We found that some viruses in the mouth can really travel very directly up to the brain and contribute to cognitive decline. So really do take good care of your oral health, floss, use the water picks, things like that, and definitely visit your dentist regularly. And then the last thing is the habit formation. We can know all this stuff, but if we don't implement it, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But oftentimes people just get really overwhelmed and not sure what to do to start. And so just begin with a good night's sleep. I think that's a big thing. That's actually my biggest challenge is to actually go to bed on time. But if you can start with that, if that's an easy thing for you to do, or if it's easier for you to start to reduce sugars, but just start with one thing out of each of the categories, and then just gradually build onto that. I love this quote from Maya Angelou. I did then what I knew how to do, and now that I know better, I do better. So just try to do a little bit better every day to protect your brain health. And these are just, kind of that there are some easy things that you can do. There's some moderate things, and that's going to be different for everyone. But start with the easy. And so in terms of like healthy eating, avoid the processed carbs, avoid sugar. In terms of emotional regulation, there's some supplements or prescription medications that you can do to lower depression or anxiety. Add some movement to your daily routine. You don't have to go run a marathon, just go on a walk, or even some isometric exercises. Just get up and moving. And then in terms of learning strategies, you could just use it. Just engage in a hobby or something that's brain challenging. Toxicant removal, you could start by a good water filter or swap out, a health and beauty aid that has a high toxicant load. and in terms of habits, get on a good sleep schedule. The intermittent fasting, I've found that people, now that they know how important it is, like then, just eliminating that nighttime snacking is really pretty easy to do as well. All right, so just start where you are, start today. There's the saying, everyone knows a cancer survivor, no one knows an Alzheimer's survivor. I want that statement to be defunct. I don't, I want to do everything I can that we all know an Alzheimer's survivor.
So we have time for a couple of questions.
Oh, we do, Christine?
Yeah. Anyone have questions? Go once. Wait for the microphone now.
Talking about fast.
Wait, hold on, wait for the microphone.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
right there.
I can talk loud enough, I think.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You talk about fasting and 8 hours, maybe 12 hours, but everything I see says you've got to have a good breakfast. I happen to love breakfast. I don't eat much at night, in the middle of the night, but I do eat big, heavy dinners. Because I just, with my schedule, we just don't eat early.
Yeah.
Is it okay to, or is it best not to skip? I know I've always heard don't skip breakfast. And breakfast is also one thing, I don't know what you eat if you don't eat carbs or sweet.
Yeah, it's hard. So the new literature says that actually if you have a brain in crisis and you're working to reduce cognitive decline, it's best to go for as long a window as possible, up to 16 hours. And so skipping breakfast is actually going to be beneficial. However, if it's more prevention or just wanting to, age healthy, if you can go 12 hours, so say that you had a big dinner, try to have your dinner earlier, maybe even a lighter dinner, and then, you can eat again at 6 a.m., have a big breakfast at 6 a.m. And so it's going to be different for everyone, and if you can only go 8 hours, then go 8 hours. If you can only go 6 hours, go 6 hours. I think the biggest thing is that if we continue to kind of munch every few hours, all our body can do is just kind of digest, and it's not able to clean out those amyloid plaques from the brain and the debris that builds up during the day. So again, start where you are, start today. Maybe today you could go 6 hours, maybe 4 weeks from now you could go 8 hours, and maybe at some point it will kind of shift in that direction. But the research that's out shows that for a brain in crisis, it's better to skip that early morning breakfast. Not that you don't eat at all, and you probably have that breakfast at 10 a.m. And a shift in the breakfast would be eggs, something like that. And a lot of times the patients that are on the Bredesen protocol actually have dinner for breakfast, and so they might have leftovers, say that they even had grass-fed steak with eggs for breakfast, and then reducing the carbs in the morning, and then also having maybe some MCT oil in their coffee or avocado omelet or something like that. But yeah, I think it is hard to make that huge shift from carb load breakfast. So just maybe swapping out one thing at a time, and over time then you can make those changes. Did that make sense? Yeah. I think it's different for everyone, but if you're working to restore cognitive function, it's not necessarily better. And again, for someone with diabetes or with a diagnosed condition in terms of blood sugar dysregulation, then it's very individual.
You're saying stay away from sugar, okay, and artificial sweeteners. What about stevia? This from the stevia plant. Is that safe to be able to use to sweeten your coffee or tea?
Yes, in small doses, and plus you don't want a lot of stevia because it has that kind of aftertaste if you use too much. But yeah, stevia is actually a plant, it's a herb. And so if you could do liquid stevia, it's a little less processed, or even now they have the packets of stevia. And then another one that that actually has a better taste. It's called monk fruit, Monkfruit. There's a company, Mankato, you can get it on Amazon, and you only need like a little drip of it in your coffee, but that's another natural sweetener that doesn't have negative brain effects. Monk fruit, Monkfruit.
We hear all these things about using coconut oil, turmeric, lecithin. I think I'm saying it right. Lecithin. Are those things really good to help?
Yes. Again, with coconut oil, I would work with your physician. Depending on your lipid profile, there's a lot of controversy in the literature. Again, if the elephant in the room is Alzheimer's disease and you don't, have heart risk factors, then they have found that MCT oil and coconut oil can really be helpful. And the ketogenic diet, what it is that it gives your body a different fuel source. And so when you're in ketosis, your body is using fat, and your liver converts the fat to ketones, which offers the brain a different energy fuel source. So typically our brains, operate off of glucose, but what we're finding in Alzheimer's disease is that it's type 3 diabetes. It's diabetes of the brain, and so the insulin receptors in the brain can't take up the glucose anymore. And so if you give it a different fuel source, the ketones, then your brain can work better. And so, yes, coconut oil has been shown to have beneficial effects for cognitive functioning. Again, with these types of things, you don't want to eat loads and loads of coconut oil, but adding a little bit to your day, and you can kind of dose throughout the day. So a little bit in the morning, a little bit at noon, and kind of will boost cognitive function. But I would work directly with your physician for that. Turmeric, I cannot say enough good things, and so turmeric is a root, and if you go to Whole Foods, you find the ginger root, and the ginger's inside there. Turmeric looks like that as well, but it's this bright orange color. And in fact, whenever I use it, I have orange hands from doing this, so you have to be kind of careful with it. That bright orange color is actually what makes it so anti-inflammatory. And from the turmeric root comes curcumin, and so you guys have probably seen the spiced curcumin. It is a beautiful herb. It is anti-inflammatory, and as we've seen that these inflammation markers are really contributing to all physical disease, and especially cognitive disease. So anything we can do that's natural to reduce the inflammation is going to be, really, really awesome. And I've found amazing effects with just making like a turmeric ginger tea, or taking curcumin supplements, but you want to make sure that they're nice and bioavailable. You also do, if you're on any types of medications, you want to speak with your physician because of that anti-inflammatory effect. It might reduce, the level that you need of the medication, since you want to make sure that you work on that on an individual level. But for someone who's, in good health and not on lots of medications, turmeric, I think is great. And you don't have to spend a ton of money on the curcumin supplements, because I think the supplement industry picked up that this is really awesome, and patients will pay a lot for it because their pain goes away and their thinking gets better. So if you just, get the turmeric spice and make a tea out of it, or the turmeric root, and it's really astringent tasting. It's not yummy, but you can utilize that in a cheaper way.
Okay, last question.
Good morning. I would like to know a good alternative for sleep. Melatonin is one.
There is no, you cannot have human sleep.
Not to help with sleep.
Yeah. So melatonin is one. And if you have tried melatonin and it just doesn't work at all, you might want to try a liposomal melatonin, because the absorption might be a little bit different for different individuals.
What was that? What was that?
Liposomal, Liposomal. I'm looking at spelling bee up here. Liposomal melatonin, and so you could look for that. But also meditation. And so one of the meditations that's been studied is called the Kirtan Kriya. Satanama. And so, again, if you sign up for the ebook, I'll send out a link to that. But doing a simple meditation before bed is going to be really powerful with that. But if you're looking for herbs, ashwagandha can also do it, but it's not going to have like an immediate effect. You're not going to take ashwagandha and then, conk out. It's going to be something that kind of builds up over time. It's a nice adaptogen for that. But there's a lot of sleep strategies that are more behavioral that can help with sleep, and that you can get away from more pharmaceuticals or get away from, supplements and things like that.
Christine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christine will be here. Christina's going to be here for the table right outside. Make sure you visit during the break. Okay, so in your packets, there's also, I promise this is not another test. In your packets, there's the evals. Please be sure at the end of each session, you're filling the evals out. We read them really carefully, and we take what you say to enhance and better upcoming conferences. And when we're back here next year, make sure that we'll take your recommendations into consideration. I'd like to welcome to the stage Nikki Coe. Where are you? Right there. Just give us 2 seconds. We're just setting up the table for the panel, and Nikki's going to introduce the panel for you.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Hey guys, can you hear me? Okay, great. My name is Nikki Coe, and I actually work with the Area Agency on Aging of West Alabama. Are you guys familiar with the Area Agency on Aging? Yes. Show of hands. Some of you, great. So, I spoke with Josie a few weeks ago, and she asked me to compile a caregiver panel for you guys, and what kind of panel would help you guys. So, as far as what resources are available in our area, statewide, the dementia-friendly Alabama initiative. Stephanie Holmes is right here in the front, and she's over that program. We're really excited about that. That program is actually an initiative of the Dementia-Friendly America concept, and educating people and becoming dementia-sensitive, teaching people about the disease and things that we can do to help our loved one as well as help ourselves, finding those local resources. So today we have 3 people that are going to be up here. They're going to come and speak on different resources that are available here in our area and as well as statewide. First up, we're going to have Ms. Christine Williams. She is actually with the United Way Area Agency on Aging here in Jefferson County. We also have Miller Piggott. She is with the Alzheimer's of Central Alabama, and she's actually located here as well. And then we also have Miss Valerie Boyd. She's with Canterbury United Methodist Church, and she's going to talk to you guys a little bit about the different resources that are available through her agency. Each panelist will give about 10 minutes or so of time, 10-15 minutes, just explaining the different services that are available through their agencies and their partners as well. So I'm going to let Ms. Christine start.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm sorry if I'm squinting. The light is bright in my face. Again, I'm with the United Way's Area Agency on Aging for Jefferson County, and we are one of the 13 area agencies on aging. And so we have 11 programs to assist the citizens in this area, and I wanted to quickly touch on each program, and I did leave some information out on the table. So if there's anything you want to know more about, there's a phone number that's listed, so if you want to call, please feel free to take a flyer. But first, we have the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and that's called the ADRC. And we provide information, referrals, resources, benefit counseling, things like that for individuals who are calling. And it's our no wrong door concept for people calling the agency. So that's going to be your key of access to the programs that I'm going to list. And when you call the ADRC, you'll speak to one of our specialists to complete a written assessment, and they'll provide the appropriate information to meet your needs. So to reach that number, you can call 1-800-AGE-LINE or 1-800-243-5463. And again, this is going to be out front as well. One of the programs that we have in the area agency is the Alabama Cares program. And this is a program for caregivers who are providing support to a loved one, unpaid caregiver. And you need to provide at least 20 hours of service a week to someone 60 years of age or older. You can also be providing assistance as a grandparent, 55 or older caring for a grandchild, or a relative 55 or older who is caring for a severely disabled family member. And so with that program, there's some education, assistance, and information that's provided, but two of the main pieces that people look to that program for are the respite service, and that is where you would select a home health agency that's contracted through us to come out and do some light housekeeping to sit with your loved one while you get a break, because we know caregiving is a crucial piece of helping someone else, and we want to try to keep folks in home as long as possible and give caregivers a break to prevent burnout. Another piece of that program is the supplemental part, and this would give help or an award for help on incontinence supplies, Boost, things like that. So again, if you have need more information, please contact the age line. The Alabama Legal Assistance Program. This program, we assist seniors by helping access public benefits, including SSI, SSDI, unemployment compensation, veterans benefits, things of that nature. And so this way you would be able to get some quality legal assistance available to vulnerable older adults. And again, all trying to protect autonomy of folks while still in the home. Another program we have is the Elderly Nutrition Program, and meals are provided through a variety of services at local senior centers. And there are 28 senior centers in our area, so there's a list of senior centers that you can access online, and again, this information will be on this handout. But also with the Elderly Nutrition Program, in some areas, a home-delivered meal, such as Meals on Wheels, is available for homebound seniors who qualify. And the meals are free of charge to both homebound seniors and those who attend a senior center. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman, and that's advocacy for those who are living in facilities. So if you have a loved one in a nursing home or some type of long-term care and there's issues, the Ombudsman program would help with that. They investigate complaints, concerns with long-term care communities, and provide information about nursing facility care and assisted living facilities and specialty care assisted living facilities. And I wanted to touch on preventative health for a moment. With the senior centers, one of the things that they provide is some type of preventative health. And right now, a big buzz that they're providing is a Tai Chi class. And so that's a support that's provided through the senior center. The Senior RX program, we provide medication assistance for people 55 and older, or people on Social Security disability of any age who are paying out of pocket for their medications. And this could be individuals without drug coverage, those in the gap, people in the Social Security disability, the 24-month waiting period to get Medicare, or people who just don't have medicines covered or have high copays. So Senior RX gets medications from the pharmaceutical companies at little or no cost. Another program is the SNAP program, and this provides seniors and disabled individuals with assistance so they can buy healthy foods at grocery stores. And so again, calling that ADRC line and getting one of those trained specialists to walk you through it, they can complete the application and get that submitted for you. And finally, we have the State Health Insurance Assistance Program, or SHIP. And through SHIP, our certified counselors and volunteers are committed to helping Medicare beneficiaries make informed choices regarding health benefits. And the SHIP program, they provide an unbiased counseling to Medicare beneficiaries and their caregivers who have questions or concerns or any problems with health coverage. And we would like to add that those counselors and volunteers are not affiliated with any insurance company and will not attempt to sell Medicare beneficiaries an insurance plan. So it's truly an unbiased set of services. So they'll be guiding you on what's best for you individually. And so those are just a handful of the programs that's provided through the United Way Area Agency on Aging for Jefferson County. And I don't know if we're doing questions at the end, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
We'll do them at the end.
Okay. So up next, I have Miller Piggott.
Good morning. I've been debating how in the world I'm going to do this so I can see the slides and see my notes at the same time. But yeah, no. That might be helpful. Of course, now I have to climb back up here on this high stool right in front of y'all. So, goodness gracious. I'm with Alzheimer's of Central Alabama, and we're a local nonprofit organization, and we serve the 21 counties across the central part of the state. And it's an important distinction that I always like to make, that we're local, because what that means is the money that we raise stays here in Alabama to help Alabama families. And we're an organization that has really tailored our service programs just for this disease. Now, we started back in 1990, and at that time there were 53,000 Alzheimer's patients in Alabama, and today there's nearly 90,000. Alabama has the 9th highest death rate of Alzheimer's disease in the United States. So this is a serious problem, and families need help throughout the course of the disease. Now, of course, a big part of what any nonprofit like ours should be doing is education. With a website and a helpline, we're there to answer your questions about Alzheimer's, to send you information. We put on a conference last year. I have to tell a funny story. Christine says she's not the cupcake police. She spoke at our conference last year, and literally while she was giving her talk about reducing sugar, we were at Valerie's church at Canterbury United Methodist, and out they came with big trays of cupcakes. And even your good talk could not prevent people from getting up and getting one. So, no, she's not the cupcake police, but we might have needed one that day. Okay, yeah, next slide. So, of course, we support research, and which it may seem kind of unusual for an organization like ours, but we have funded 24 research grants since 2001. Most of those have been here at UAB. We funded 1 at Auburn and 2 at Tuscaloosa. And we're really proud of the record that we have, because those grants are intended to help entice junior investigators into the field of Alzheimer's research. So really very important. Next slide. I'm going to all the pictures that I'm showing you are people here from Alabama. These are our neighbors and friends, and they've all given me permission to show their pictures and to tell their stories. And when we think about making our community dementia friendly, we have to remember and be aware of that progressive nature of Alzheimer's disease. This is Kristen and Philip Morris from Tuscaloosa, and that's Kristen in 2006 when she was first diagnosed from Alzheimer's. And I know Philip has told me the story many times of how he tried to get her to go to an adult daycare, and she didn't want to go. She refused to go, and he would go home and check on her at lunch, and one day he found her in the middle of the street, very confused and upset. And she got in the car, and he tried to calm her down, and she said, "I'm ready to go to that place." And so she started her journey at Caring Days, which is actually represented out here at a booth, and is a wonderful adult daycare center. And they worked with Kirsten to take care of her until her death. Now this next picture, next slide. That's Kirsten in 2016. That's actually taken about 15 months before her death. So when we think about Alzheimer's, we really do have to have services at each stage of the disease for patients. So the first thing that we provide, next slide, is Project Lifesaver bracelets. And I was so glad to see a member of law enforcement here. We're the largest provider of Project Lifesaver bracelets here in Jefferson County. We currently have 54 patients who wear a Project Lifesaver bracelet. This is, I call it a big ugly watch, but it emits a radio tracking signal that can help a patient be located if they wander from home. It is available through most sheriff's departments. In fact, in all of our 21 counties, it's available through the sheriff's department. And also the state troopers have been very involved in providing this program statewide. Wandering is the most dangerous Alzheimer's behavior. 60% of Alzheimer's patients will wander, and those who do tend to do so repeatedly. And so once you are beginning to be concerned that wandering is a danger, you really need to begin to take measures to keep your loved ones safe. We had a gentleman just a couple of weeks ago. He was being picked up by a paid caregiver. He was wearing a GPS device. He refused to get in the car and started out on foot. And rather than dialing 911, they decided to try to follow him in the car. And he got away from them, and he was struck and killed by a car on 280 several hours later. So when I say this is a dangerous behavior, I'm not teasing. It absolutely is. Next slide. Now this is Jean. Now Jean had that particular kind of wandering that Project Lifesaver wouldn't help, and this is what I call the ignorant caregiver. Now Jean was still driving, but she was only driving 2 places, so that's got to be safe, right? Y'all know what 2 places she was going, don't you? Church and the beauty parlor. So one Saturday morning, she sets out to go to the beauty parlor. There were only 2 turns between her house and where she got her hair done. And she went the wrong way, and she wound up in Butler, Alabama, going down the wrong side of the road. So that was the end of Jean's driving. And that's why we've really got to be careful about when we take the keys away. And I always tell my families, if you're beginning to wonder if it's time to take the keys away, it already is. Now this next picture is Mr. Thigpen. Now Mr. Thigpen's our more classic kind of wanderer. He had a wonderful career in the military, but before he joined the military and after, he shined shoes downtown. And so after he had Alzheimer's and he had to retire for a second time, he fought his wife every day to go stand out for the bus so he could get a ride downtown to go shine shoes. And that's a more classic kind of wanderer, and Project Lifesaver is the perfect device to help keep someone like Mr. Thigpen safe. Next slide. Alzheimer's of Central Alabama is actually the largest provider of adult daycare in Alabama. 34% of our budget funds adult daycare centers. We provide scholarships for patients to attend. 42% of the people that are on our programs have monthly incomes that are less than $1,000. So providing and needing the kind of respite care that gives the caregiver a break, but also keeps the patient engaged and active and involved is really, really quite important. Right now we've got 76 patients on the program. They receive a scholarship that is equivalent to $250 a month to attend. And you can download an application from our website, and awards are given based on greatest need. Let's see this next picture. That's Wilma. Wilma is up at Silver Oaks Daycare, which is in Graysville. And of the 21 counties that we serve, there are only adult daycares in 3 counties, Tuscaloosa, Shelby, and Jefferson. This next picture is our music therapist, Walker Wright. Last year, we provided nearly 60,000 hours of respite care. And, when we think about what this disease, there's such a long trajectory with this disease. 55% of the people on the program, their caregivers have been at it for 6 years or more, and almost 20% of them have been caring for 10 years. So you can see why a break is so valuable and important to them. Next slide. Now, this is the program that is providing continence supplies for families. And when you think about that, these people tend to be a little bit older. They tend to be more homebound. We're providing this service in 18 of our 21 counties right now. 11% of these caregivers have been caring for more than 16 years. And last year, we gave out 98,000 continence products. So we are filling the landfill. I'm not proud of that part of it. But, you have to have continence products when you have this disease. And this is a case of products that's delivered to the home. And this is, let's see the next picture. That's Rosa with her husband. And the next picture is Kathleen. Now this next picture is my absolute favorite, and it's kind of hard to see. But if you could see, Queenie, who is there in the bed, has got red fingernails. And I got to tell you, if somebody's painting your fingernails, they are taking mighty good care of you. Let's see the next slide. We have worked with a program called Music and Memories that a social worker, Dan Cohen, developed to provide personalized iPods for Alzheimer patients so they can listen to the music that touches them the most. Alzheimer's of Central Alabama was the first non-residential place that got certified in this program. And let me see the next slide. The last summer, we provided 70 iPods to the people on our service programs, and that is Willie Mae. And her daughter tells us she is grooving to the sounds of Marvin Gaye, and I love that. Her daughter was really surprised how much her mother took to the music and enjoyed listening to that. So I think that's really important. We also have provided fidget blankets for many of our caregivers. These are blankets that were made by the women of Mount Hebron Baptist Church. They had zippers, some of them had pockets. They had all kind of different fabrics and textures, and it's just something to lay in their lap that gives joy, gives them something tactile to feel. We also have provided some of the robotic pets. Hasbro makes a really good dog and cat. They cost about $100, but we have found a very cheap repeat parrot that you can also get from Amazon, that if you say something, he'll say it back to you. Would be quite annoying, but actually we've had many patients who really like it, and some patients like the $20 parrot more than they like the expensive cat or dog. We give hope through, that's all right. We give hope through providing art, music, and movement to the adult daycare centers. And this is some examples of some artwork being created. We put out a calendar of Alzheimer's art every year as well. This is Samuel painting a picture. And if you look, his artwork is actually something that is quite typical of what we see in Alzheimer patients. It's disconnected dots making a beautiful picture. And there's another example. I like this because, you know, if you work individually, even when you think that there's not a chance that someone that can't dress themselves would be able to create artwork, you're wrong, because they really can. In fact, one of our daycare said, my people can't do that, and her daycare is covered in artwork that her patients have created. This next picture is music therapy. We provided all of the adult daycare centers with drum kits. Drum kits not to make loud banging noise, but to make soft, rhythmical noise, and the patients really enjoy it. And you can just show those next two slides. And I want to challenge y'all, go ahead to the next one, to find your caregiving rhythm. And I think that's something that each one of us has to do. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, changes to our diet and lifestyle that make us more healthy. I think finding your caregiving rhythm, finding a way to lean into this is so very important. And the last picture I want to show you is Ruby, and I want to read a quote from her daughter, Joanne, who cared for her for many years. She says, "We could have fought it, feared it, or faltered in it, but somehow we just faced it, often with a smile and always one day at a time. I think I'm in a place of not giving up, but just trying not to give out and to get through it with grace and dignity for my mother. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's the one thing I want to do the very best and with no regrets. The newest member of our family, Mother's baby doll. It has brought us so much joy and laughter. Who would have thought it?" And then that final slide's got our contact information on it. So we are here, as I said, we're a local organization providing services and standing with families throughout the course of their illness. Thank you.
Skip Miller, she does so much for this community. It is amazing. And my name is Valerie Boyd. I'm the Director of Senior Adult Ministries at Canterbury United Methodist Church. And one of my primary responsibilities is that I'm responsible for the Encore Respite Program that has been there almost 2 years in June. But I thought, okay, how am I going to sum up everything in 15 minutes? But I think the biggest thing that I want y'all to take away today is that you are not alone. If you're caregivers out there or if you're a healthcare professional, just know that there are so many resources in this town. I mean, I've learned so much. I mean, I've met with you a few times already, Christine, but there are resources here, and we are here to help you. We want to help you. There's numbers to call, and I love to say we're all in this together, and we'll figure it out. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Encore program. I'm very proud of it, and y'all are going to be so excited because Daphne Johnson, who is your featured speaker this afternoon, is the reason that I have this program. One of the first things I did when I started at Canterbury was start a support group. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and my mom was her caregiver for 13 years. And so I had this support group, and we meet every Thursday at 10 a.m. And that started 2.5 years ago, and we had probably 5 or 6 people, and now we have anywhere between 25 and 30 people that come every week. And we now break into smaller groups because we've gotten so large, but it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So if any of you want to ever come, you're more than welcome. I know there's several support groups. Miller has one. I know CARES has one. Lauren is here from the CARES program at Jewish Family Services, and they have so many resources too. That's what I'm telling you. There's so many of us out here that can help you with senior solutions. But anyway, back to Encore. So basically, we are a respite program. We're a little bit different than a daycare. This is a social model. It is for early to moderate stage dementia and cognitive impairment. We have a criteria for you to be able to come to the program, and that is that you are able to use the bathroom on your own. A lot of them wear Depends, and we've had some accidents and things like that. But for the most part, when we say, okay, let's all go to the restroom, that they can go in and handle their own needs. You have to be able to eat on your own and be somewhat mobile. I mean, they all have walkers and canes and things like that, but just not wheelchair bound. And so what we do is we provide stimulation in so many different ways for these wonderful, we call them participants. And the beauty of this program is that it's run by volunteers. And so, but everybody thinks that they're a volunteer there, and they just think that they're going to this wonderful place at Canterbury or First United Methodist or at CARES, and they're just hanging out with all these wonderful people that are retired, and we're doing art, we're doing music, we're laughing, we do devotions, we do service projects, we go outside and the ice cream truck comes, we have people that come and entertain us, we do all sorts of things. And the whole premise of it was to give the caregiver a break. But what we found is that not only was it giving them that break for 4 hours that was so wonderful to them, but they could see a difference in their loved one when they came home in the afternoon. Their spirit was just a little bit lighter, and they were a little bit happier. And they didn't remember what they did during the day, but they remembered how they felt. And that is the biggest thing that I think that we can all take away, is that people that have cognitive issues, their emotions are so heightened, and they know how they're being treated. And we make them feel as if they still have a purpose, they're still needed in society, and we find the things that their strengths, that they can do. If they can't pick up a paintbrush and paint, then we'll find something else that they can do. And that's the beauty of this whole program, is finding their strengths and making them feel good about who they are. Also, the volunteers that are volunteering from all over the community, we have over 30 churches involved that are volunteering at Canterbury. And they feel like they are giving just as much and getting just as much as the participant, because they're just learning how to be a friend to them and be with them and love them. So a typical day at Encore is we greet them as they drive through. It's almost like a carpool, and they come in, and we have greeters outside, and we're all waving, and they get out of the car, and we do a lot of hugging. And so we hug, and we walk in, and we have what we call kind of like a coffee shop. And we have tables set up, and we have puzzles out there, and we drink coffee, and then we'll have a devotion, and then we'll do some sort of intellectual stimulation that they don't know what we're doing, but we'll do a puzzle on the whiteboard and ask them different sorts of questions. But we set them up for success. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to think of anything. I wanted to tell you also about another resource here in Birmingham, and that's Life Care for Seniors. They are a company now, Christy Bain, some of you may know her. She's a geriatric care manager, and so she can help walk through decisions and help you make those next steps. Again, that company's called Life Care for Seniors, and they do have a website. I think that's all I have for now. I know y'all are ready for a break.
I just wanted to say something about your wonderful program, and that is that this is something that can be replicated in your own community and in your own congregation. So,
yes. Okay, yes, that's exactly right. Daphne is going to talk a little bit about that in her presentation, but when I first went there and saw Daphne, I had no idea what to do, but she walked me through every step, and since then, we have like 4 or 5, there's one opening today at IPC. They're starting a respite program 2 days a week. They have one in Coleman. St. Luke's is starting one in the fall. So we will help you start one at your church, and we can do it. And we can figure out the money, all that stuff. So call me, call Daphne, and let's spread this. Let's spread it all over Alabama.
So Christine Miller, I'm over here, guys, I'm sorry. I appeared from nowhere. These 3 ladies will be here for the rest of the day. We have time for a couple of quick questions. Any questions for them? I know you're all just overwhelmed with the information. All right, well, without further ado, thank you, ladies.
Oh, okay.
Where did you say those can be obtained?
well, if you're here in Jefferson County, you call our office, Alzheimer's of Central Alabama, and I've got information out on the table out there. But if you're from another county, you would start with your sheriff's department.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, so we're almost in the home stretch. We're going to show you a quick video. We mentioned Daphne, who is going to round up the conference for us this afternoon. We're going to show you a quick little teaser video. But before we do that, lunch is outside. This is going to be a working lunch. So you go outside, you walk down the hall, you grab your lunch, and then you go back upstairs to the tables that you were at when you came in this morning. And that's where the last session, that's where the last session will be. But without further ado, we're going to show a quick teaser video and kill the lights.
Oh, there she is. Oh, I'm so glad to see you. Man, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
These are the people that have built your church. They're the pillars of your community. They have given their time, talent, and treasure. And now, when they need you the most, what has your church got for them as a ministry? My name is Daphne Johnston, and I'm the Executive Director of the Respite Ministry at First United Methodist Church in Montgomery, Alabama.
When I was young, I guess, if you had dementia, you just sort of went on the back porch and rocked. We have so much to give, and we are still very vital to ourselves, our families, our community.
Listen, everything we do, we try to have purpose. I want us at each table to come up with 15 ways that we can help our neighbor. We do art, we do music, we do pet therapy, we do weight training, we do yoga, we do chapel services through the month. We need to do projects that lift people up. So we do these things together to send to the hospital, to send to the nursing home, to send to shut-ins. We travel all over the city to sing in different places, and then they have a final concert to put on for the community. I think my group thinks they're the Rockettes.
There's so many things that we can do and help anybody that will let us help them.
I do want to be there for anybody that needs me.
That I go home and I feel so different than
when I came. The twinkle in everybody's eye, the joy that I see God when I am here. I see Him in every face I look into.
With the disease comes isolation. We realized that they didn't even have an opportunity to still be a part of a spiritual community. I am a God of plenty. I never run out of good things. And so when someone can't remember their loved one's name anymore, or they might not be able to remember how many grandchildren they have, but they know they've got an internal need to pray for their family that's in us. And we need an outlet to be able to pray together. The ministry has spread. We've helped 4 or 5 other programs get up and running, and 2 or 3 in the cooker. And they're all based in the United Methodist Church, and 140 different volunteers from 8 different churches and 2 synagogues. It is our duty to get out there and do new mission work, not just the same ministries we've done year after year, and be the hands and feet of Christ.
That's coming up. Al, we can say goodbye to the live stream. We'll be back in 25 minutes. So again,